Welcome to the Keenan Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Keenan Lake is the author of the book My Daddy Taught Me That, published by Welcome, a social worker and activist. You can like this show's fan page at www.facebook.com/The Keenan Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Feel free to post any comments, questions, or requests for his book on the fan page. Now let's go into the studio with your host, Mr. Keenan Lake, and co-host, Marcus Select.
Well, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Another edition of the Keenan Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Thank you so very much for joining us live and on demand. Thank you to all the KL Show followers on Twitter. We appreciate you. Keenan, how are you today?
Coach, as usual, I'm doing wonderful. It's been a rainy weekend, but other than that, I stayed afloat, I'm dry, and I'm ready to get started. How are you today, Coach?
Hey, I'm doing good. We had a lot of great reviews regarding that show that we did about mothers raising sons. Is there something missing? And I tell you, we want to thank all of those mothers that have been listening, all of the families that have been listening and weighing in from all over the United States and the world. Thank you so much to all of our listeners.
Exactly. I want to second that. Well, Coach, today I want to talk about our topic and jump right in again, as we normally do. I think we may have a couple of guest speakers tuning in today, but whether they call in or not, we're going to get started, Coach. And today I want to talk about something that's been, I think our older listeners and the older crowd will really appreciate it, but and maybe some others will appreciate it too. But I want to talk about sagging, pants sagging, and our youth sagging their pants, and that whole stereotype, what it talks about, the whole act of these young kids doing it. And I want to kind of jump into that, Coach. And first and foremost, I'm going to start off with asking you a question, which is, how do you feel about that? What do you think about when you see the youth out here with their pants hanging, drawers showing, stuff like that? You're a younger man. You're not an old man. You're not in your 60s and 70s. You know, I think we all know what the older crowd will say, but give me your take on that, Coach.
Well, there was a story here in Atlanta where this guy stole this car just the other day, and for those listening on demand, it's been passed, and the young man crashed the car onto the front lawn of the Clayton County Police Station. He got out of the car and proceeded to run, but every time he galloped a step or two, his pants would come down to his shoes. He would he would stop to pick up his pants, and there again, after a gallop or two, his pants would fall down to his shoes. And on the third time, his pants, as he galloped or two, came off. But the stoppage to pull his pants up, the police say, was how they were able to secure the suspect.
Exactly. Oh, man.
You asked for it, so you got it.
I did, Coach. I did. So check this out, Coach. Well, that's hilarious. If everyone who tunes into the show knows about my activities with youth, my activities with my men's development program, stuff like that. So I'm around young men all the time, and I'm around young teenagers all the time, particularly with social services. Now, I want to make this clear. This is not an epidemic or something that only young men do, okay? This is something that older men do. You're starting to see a lot of women doing this, too. You'll see women with their pants sagging and hanging, too. So,
hey, hold on a minute.
My take on the whole thing.
Keenan, right before you give your take, we want to thank Tyson for joining the line. Tyson, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, hold on.
Man, what's going on, Mr. Tyson Bates? How you doing today?
I'm good, brother. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, Tyson. So listen, today we're talking about sagging, pants sagging, and I just asked Coach Marcus Select about his take on it. He just told us a story about a young man who was running from the police and was trying to run from the police, of course, and fell down because his pants were sagging. But I'm going to give you the same opportunity. What do you think about this whole / epidemics trend that's been going on for quite some time now?
I mean, I think that, it's really repeating itself. That when I actually came through grade school, kids were doing that, and I'm not sure if it was the first time, I guess, in history that it had taken place, but it was a big deal then. But today, it's embraced even more so by pop culture. When we came through, hip-hop didn't have, and even the media didn't have the same impact as it does on today's community or today's youth. I mean, you look at all the top, I guess, hip-hop artists and R&B artists, it's almost a fashion trend.
Exactly.
Even to the point where, they actually tie their belt down around their knees. And, a part of it is, not having the father figure in the home or anybody to just say something different. And a part of it is these kids just follow the media and follow hip-hop culture and do what they think is fashionable, man. It's an epidemic that's serious, but somebody needs to do something to stop it. I'm not sure what the answer is.
And I agree with that. And let me say, I've asked both of you gentlemen about it, and let me tell the audience what I think about it. First of all, for a while I didn't pay any attention because, like you said, Tyson, it was something that we dealt with when we were coming up and growing up. It's something that's been ongoing for a very long time now. But I think what's happening now is getting out of line, because what's starting to happen is you're starting to see kids matching their underwear with their outfits. And part of it is being able to show off their underwear, so that's, but it's like, it's not so much sagging to where you see, maybe 2 to 3 inches of, the top part of the underwear. It's sagging to the point where their pants is literally below their back. Yeah, and it's like, it's just to the point where it's like, really, seriously? Now, when we come back from break, I'm going to tell, I watched a documentary. I watched a documentary a couple of weeks ago, and during this documentary, it said something very, very interesting about this whole thing, sagging, stuff like that. Now, I know we all know that sagging comes from the penitentiary, where when you're in jail, if your pants are sagging, that lets the inmates supposedly know that you're available for sex. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Coach, you want to weigh in on this real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I had told a young man about, I want to say about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years ago, the same thing you just said about his pants sagging. I said, well, this is where it came from. And at the time, the young man said, the young man that was with him said, well, I don't care, And so I proceeded to talk to the other young man that hadn't a response. His pants were still sagging, but at least he was listening. And today, this young man has his pants up. He's not smoking weed. He's not doing those things that he shouldn't be doing. And he can testify that it's just no need to, once you grow up, once you mature a little bit, it's no need to follow the culture. Now you can follow your own mind. So the only thing that I can say is the same thing as Tyson said, is that, eventually they have to grow up and they'll have to decide for themselves whether to follow the crowd or follow, their own mind. You know what I'm saying?
But don't you guys both think that it's a problem when you see, like, for example, it's one thing if you're 16, 17, and you got sagging pants, but when first of all, it's two things. When you're 30, 35 and your pants are still sagging, and then also when the so-called leaders who these kids watch, the mega rap stars, the mega, like Tyson just mentioned earlier too, the community of the rap community, the R&B community, whatever community, the pop culture community, when they lead the way, and these people who are doing it, they're not 16 and 17, they're grown people doing it.
True. That's
so
true.
Is that a problem too?
The problem is they never mature. Like Coach just said, as a youngster, and even in my age group, they were doing it when we were teenagers. Mm-hmm. I didn't really get into that, but I had peers that got into it. But the difference was I matured and became a young adult. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
These kids aren't maturing. So you have grown men still doing the same things that they did as teenagers. And I'm not just talking about clothes. It's bigger than that. They're still messing with random women. And when they go out and reproduce, they're still doing the exact same thing. So it's a generational curse. That cycle repeats itself.
Right.
Over and over and over again. And, I mean, man, I think sagging gives us a snapshot into really what's going on in our culture. It's a much bigger ordeal, and it's obviously a lack of leadership. I know, I've known Keenan's father, I've known Keenan basically all my life, and I knew what kind of impact his father had on him. And I knew that his dad would not have allowed him to leave the house that way. You know what I mean? That's not, the nuclear family is almost non-existent in our community now, man. So, you don't have men saying, hold on, where you going? Pull your pants up. And even if there's no pressure. There's no pressure. If it's my mom is saying it, I wouldn't do it in front of her, but when I leave the house, I can pretty much do what I want to do. I think there's your father have that old school fear and respect. My dad told me to do something, I'm going to make sure that I do it, regardless.
Exactly.
Whether he's watching me or not.
So in other words, you're telling us that if Tyson ever left the house with his pants sagging, he wouldn't go for that.
I mean, he wouldn't even, the thing is, like, my son is funny, he's 9, he'll be 10 next month. But he recognizes, what we call foolery. Like, he sees it. Because my wife and I, we put everything on the table, and we have those open forum discussions with him. So he sees it, and he knows, it'll never happen, because he already knows better, And as a matter of fact, he almost shakes his head when he sees it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an old spirit, man.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Coach, I think we're about to take a break right now, aren't we?
Yes, sir. We'll take a small break, but I think Tyson hit it. He hit all 3 points. The cultural expression of the pants sagging has many more other dynamics that fit that. There's something that goes with that. And I think also what he said about the fact that there's little leadership from men, and Keenan's been saying that all along, is that until men step up to the plate and stop leaving it all on the mothers and on these young ladies, and step up and let even the tone of a man's voice can shake a child into its proper place if the man ain't out jacking around. Yeah. So I think Tyson
mentioned something. Yeah, he mentioned something really good when he said, and I really want to piggyback on that. We'll elaborate that more when we come back from break. But real quick, when he said, if my mother told me to pull my pants up, I'll do it in front of her. But once I left the house, it's back to with my boys. It's back to so-called being a man.
Right.
And only a man can give you that affirmation to say, you know what, my daddy told me this, or this positive male role model in my life, who I'm going to be like one day, told me that this ain't cool. So if a man tells me this, and this is somebody who looks like me, somebody who I'm going to be like, I can take that, to the bank. So, yeah, we'll jump into a little bit more of this when we come back from break.
All right, you're listening to the Keenan Lake Show on SIBN Radio. We'll take a small break, and we'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Responsible. Accountable. Who taught you that? My daddy taught me that. That's right, the new book all the way from Asheville, North Carolina, representing the legacy of Benny Lake is Keenan Lake, the author of My Daddy Taught Me That, the book and the program for young men in Asheville, North Carolina, and throughout the region. Tune in to the program, the project, and the book at MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com. For more information, email lake@MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com. or call 828-582-2261. That's 828-582-2261. MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com. All right, we're back here live and on demand with the Keenan Lake Show, live from SIBN Radio Studio, also Asheville, North Carolina. Charlotte is in the house. We have Keenan Lake, the host of the show, and we have Tyson Bates on the line as we discuss pants on the ground.
So check this out, folks. So real quick, guys, we were talking about young men and actually even young women today. We see that we're starting to see that a lot more. Young women sagging their pants as well. But I want to tell you guys something that really wanted me to bring attention to this, to this show, and actually even do a show about this. I was watching a documentary about 3 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago, and in the documentary was talking about us as African American people, racism and the struggles and all that kind of stuff. We see those all the time. But it pointed out something that was just snapped to my attention, and what it said, what the lady was saying, it was based on a bunch of doctors and researchers and historians were primarily doing the documentary. But what they talked about was one thing that was really really interesting to me. What they said was that when you had set up a plan for a race, okay, you try to conquer and dominate this race. Part of that plan is not only getting rid of the dominant force, which is in our family generation, the male, but it's changing the entire mind frame and the culture of that race. And what they were saying was because of racism and because of the way the racism system had been set up, this was said back in 1976. They had this big meeting, and the guy said, because of racism, it's going to turn African American males into being more homosexualized and turning against their families and women. And they said the start of this is going to be, and this is the crazy thing about this was said again in 1976. They said it's going to start with the sagging of the pants, and they said what's going to happen is eventually the sagging of the pants means that the pants are coming down, and then they said eventually that means the young men are going to be stepping in out of the pants, and then they started giving like examples of this. They actually mentioned Morehouse. They said Morehouse College had to tell all the men at the schools they could not wear high heel shoes, purses, or dresses. And they said this documentary was just released this year, but they were getting all this information. And they said more so now than ever, at alarming rates, African American males, there are more signs of African American males being having homosexuality issues and confused with their sexuality, which is a form of the pants sagging. Now, is that too deep, gentlemen, or is that something that we're seeing? What's up with that?
Boy, that's a deep one. I'm gonna let Tyson take that one right there first. Good Lord.
I don't think it's too deep at all, man. You know, you mentioned earlier, Keenan, when you piggybacked off the statement that I made, as far as having a father there to tell you what you can and can't wear, what you can and can't do. For instance, Keenan, I'm a huge Duke fan. All right, so naturally, my son is a Duke fan, and I didn't tell him to be a Duke fan. He's a Duke fan because, I'm the guy that he models himself after. You see what I'm saying? When you're talking about young men venturing off into homosexuality, and it's going on with the girls too. I see it in my business all the time when I pick up kids in these middle schools. But when you're talking about young men venturing off into homosexuality, as a child, you look to identify with something. And you're going to identify with something, whether it be the community around you, whether it be the media, or whether you get that identification from whatever goes on in your home. At some point, you're going to identify with something. These kids that are venturing into homosexuality, drugs, or even fall on pop culture, they don't have the immediate person to identify with. So they're going to go with whatever is easy for them, whatever's embraced by their community. Man, it's like here in Florida, I've seen it where when we pick up some of our middle schoolers, there are boys that have on stilettos and dresses, and the difference is
right. Hold on.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Man, look, let me tell you something. The difference is, when we came through, let's say in middle school, let's say if a kid was gay, when we came through, it wasn't socially accepted. So if a kid was gay, he kept that to himself. Mm-hmm. Maybe in adulthood he will come out with that. But today the culture, accepts it. It's accepted. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not here to knock anybody's sexuality, because I leave the judgment to God and God alone. But the difference is the culture that we're living in today, it welcomes that stuff, man. It welcomes, and then you have, it's rare that you have anybody that speaks out against it, and it's hard to speak out against it when your government welcomes it.
Exactly.
So from that point, and it's going to continue to, that open-minded, liberal spirit, it'll continue to manifest itself, and we'll see it in our children. I mean, we'll see it in our government. We're going to see it in our kids. We're going to start to see it in our homes, and it'll continue to replicate itself, man. I don't see it changing. Why would it change? If like I said, if you have legislation that backing itself, why would it change?
But why would it change? You're absolutely right, Tyson. You are absolutely right. And this is the thing, too, man. it was like, when I was looking at this documentary, I could not believe it, because what they were saying was, and this is what they were showing clips, of course, when they have documentaries, they show clips to support what they were talking about. So they were showing all these men wearing these heels and dresses and purses, and they were saying that the administration at Morehouse had to tell these men that they could no longer wear this stuff at school, okay? But then they started showing all these videos of the, they have all these twerk videos that's going on now. Yeah. They started showing all the twerk videos of men and young, 16, 17, year-old, 20-year-old men doing. I'm like, what is? I'm sorry, folks. I'm not. Again, I'm just like Tyson. I'm not knocking anyone's sexuality. I'm not trying to tell you what you can and cannot do as far as your sexuality is concerned. But to me, this type of thing is just totally over my head and beyond, what I'm used to seeing and what I'm used to and what I know is to be. Because it's like when you see stuff like this, and when you hear about how 1976 someone they said there was a system set up where a plan was put in place where African American males would be more subjected to female tendencies. That's crazy to me.
Well, Tyson and Keenan, y'all both hitting it on the head. Listen, if you do not have a prevalent species of either male or female in the life of the child, it would be the same if mothers were, let's just say mothers take a hike for the next 20 years.
Right.
Then you would have a bunch of kids running around here with all masculine tendencies. And so exactly. I think Tyson and you have hit the nail on the head. And what we're saying to those that are listening is this. This question is a misstep. Sexuality, when it comes to our children, should not even be up for discussion right now. What we should be discussing, as we're discussing today, and what should be discussed on a national level, is the representation of both male and female in a wholesome and functioning environment for the child to have a chance. Notice I said a chance at wholesome development without arrest. And what we have, Keenan, you say it every show, and Tyson has said it once again, is that we have a plight of no leadership. Now, I want to ask Tyson a question. I want to ask, in the educational process and pursuit of a youngster, when did an administration allow a policy for males to dress or as imposters or as females and vice versa? When is that acceptable in the pursuit of education? I don't. That's the part that I wanted to ask Tyson about.
Well, see, when then it goes to what is it? The separation of church and state. Where you're going to take your personal beliefs and how you view things. In today's society, you can't or not supposed to even speak on those things when you're in a public setting, as far as a school setting. So you start getting into speaking of the personal beliefs, which are normally going to be tied to your religious beliefs. Then you get in a taboo area. When I was a school teacher, I was told, I had several students that were atheists, and they would tell me all the time, well, hey, there's separation between church and state. You can't talk about God here. Now, if this was, Jesus Christ high school, then yeah. But no, we're in a public setting, and these were high school students that would tell me this. It didn't deter me. I was thinking about God, and I would go ahead and do what I felt was necessary within my classroom. But, like I said, we live in a very liberal world now, and it's only going to get more liberal.
Listen,
it's only going to get more. People.
Our time for this show is gone, and listen, we only got a couple more minutes, and Keenan has to plug the book. But this is what I'm saying: the pants on the ground subject also is the stilettos on the shoes, on the feet. Yeah. I mean, if you allow pants on the ground, then you got to allow stilettos, whatever the heck they are, on the feet of God. I mean, and then you got the double earring with the one in the nose and in the tongue. I mean, I'm just saying, in the pursuit of education, for the sake of education, that there should be a standard, as you guys know, that we had to adhere to. Your pants is pulled up, your shirt is covering yourself properly, stand up, walk straight, and sit your behind down somewhere and try to get something, try to learn something. I think the school has become a circus of sorts, is my point.
It's a distraction.
You know,
Huge
so
distraction.
hey, Keenan, we got to wrap this show up, man, and then we'll continue on in production. Go ahead and give your Twitter. Tyson, stay on the line. Go on and give your Twitter information, Keenan, and so we can wrap this one up.
All right, folks. Again, listen, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and joining us to another episode of the Keenan Lake Show. We enjoyed having you. We hope that you benefited from the show. Again, my following information is the KL Show. That's on Facebook. My other Facebook is My Daddy Taught Me That. And then I have a personal Facebook, which is Keenan Lake. The Twitter account is the KL Show. You can always go to my website, which is www.mydaddytaughtmethat.com. And you can call me at area code 828-582-2261. Again, folks, we love you. We thank you. Continue to follow the Keenan Lake Show. We'll see you soon.
All right, folks, whatever you do, keep it locked on the Keenan Lake Show for back-to-back episodes on multiple subjects. And today we've been talking about pants on the ground and so much more on the ground, leadership on the ground for that matter. Hey, you guys stay on the line. We'll see everybody else on the next episode. It's the coach.
Thank you for joining us today for the Keenan Lake Show. We know you will be empowered as you consider the content shared by Mr. Keenan Lake, co-host Marcus Select, and our guests. For more information about Mr. Keenan Lake, please visit www.mydaddytaughtmethat and feel free to email us at lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com. Books can be ordered from Mr. Lake by calling 828-582-2261. Until next time, you've been listening to the Keenan Lake Show on SIBN Radio.